Good morning, class. This is Mrs. Federowitz. Today we're going to be making our easy soda pop bread. Now, before we start anything, the first thing I need you to do is wash your hands for 20 seconds. I've already done that, so please make sure that you take the moment before you begin and 20 seconds, wash with soap and water, paper towel, throw it away when you're done with it. Also make sure that your hair is up if it's long. Even though we're still working at home, we want to follow all safety and sanitation procedures while we're in the kitchen making stuff. So for our easy soda pop bread, you would have received a package of the recipe kit from school. I want you to get that recipe kit now and lay it out on your counter. And that's exactly what I did with all of my ingredients here. The next thing that I did is I assembled all the items I was going to need. You're just going to use a bowl today. You're going to use a whisk or a fork, spatula. You're going to need a loaf pan. The difference between, and I was asked this before, do I need a dark metal one or do I need a glass one? Either one's going to be fine. What you need to know is the glass one actually, it takes longer to heat up, but once it does, it gets really, really hot. And so I know that the advice that many people have is to reduce your oven temperature by 25 degrees if you're baking with glass, and then it's probably going to come out of the oven about 5 minutes sooner. You just kind of have to watch it and see what happens with yours. But you could use either one. And then you're going to need, for melting the butter, you can use some sort of glass dish to do that. You're gonna need a toothpick, you're gonna need some spray, and that's about it. And then of course your soda. I've given you in your container a 7-Up sort of drink. The back of the recipe does give you other options for making a variety of breads. And these are some of the other sodas that if you have them at home and you want to try that instead of doing the 7-Up and you want to make one of the variations on the back, go for it. You absolutely can, okay? So the first thing that you need to do once you have all of your items out is you need to preheat your oven, which I already have preheated, 375 degrees. Next thing that says on our step is to lightly grease a 9 by 5 inch loaf pan. And so again, 9 by 5 is one of these. And it doesn't matter which one we're going to use. I'm actually going to use this one. Lightly greased. So I can use the spray, or if I have shortening, I can use that. I could even use butter. The thing that I want you to remember to do about this is never do it over the floor so you don't get the spray on the floor. I usually do mine over the sink. And when I spray, I try to make sure that I get it into the crevices. All right, and then I'm going to set that down. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is, it says in a bowl, we're going to mix our flour. So I'm going to have you take your flour out. You should have 3 cups of flour. Many of these bread recipes are pretty basic ingredients. So 3 cups of flour, brown sugar. We need a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. So I'm going to have you add that into it as well. It does say to add your baking powder. Okay, so we have our baking powder. Now we've been talking in class about the difference between baking powder and baking soda and then what each of these ingredients are. Our flour is going to give our bread what? It's going to give us the bread structure. And the brown sugar is going to give it some coloring, but it's also going to give it flavoring. The baking powder is going to, hopefully you know this, that's going to make it rise, okay? So that's our leavening agent. Salt. What does our salt do in our bread? Hopefully you're answering for me there, and you should be saying that salt is going to kind of give, for quick breads, it's going to give us flavoring more than anything else. In yeast breads, it's a little bit different, but in this one, it's going to give us flavoring. And then the final thing is Italian seasoning. Now this loaf, or this recipe that we're making, the Italian seasoning, this is going to go really good with like a lasagna or a spaghetti. If you are really kind of like, yeah, I think I'm going to like it, but I don't know if I want the Italian seasoning. I'm not sure that's how we're going to eat it. I'd rather just have a sweet bread and not have it with any sort of savory in there. If you decide you don't want to use the Italian seasoning, you can omit it out and not use it in your bread recipe. And I'm actually going to leave it out for ours because we aren't going to eat it with a lasagna or something. Now, the next thing that it says is you are going to mix these well, and it's really important that you mix these well before you add the liquid, because we want to, with a quick bread, mix it the least amount possible. So in doing that, we need to get that baking powder as evenly distributed in with the flour as possible. Now I can either use a whisk or I can use a fork to do this. It really doesn't matter. As you can see in the bowl? Okay, so as you can see, I'm really kind of getting it mixed in. My brown sugar, I can feel some chunks in there, so I'm gonna grab my fork. I do use my whisk, but in all honesty, I use my fork a lot. We don't want any chunks of brown sugar, so maybe before you put your brown sugar in, you maybe even want to break it up a little bit, because I can feel chunks in here. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pressing the fork on the edge of the bowl where I am getting that brown sugar over to the side and really kind of breaking the brown sugar up so we don't have the chunks that are in there. Okay, you can see right here I got a big chunk on the side, so I'm just breaking it up. It should be nice and smooth and well mixed, all right? Okay, now, the next step is going to be pour in the 7-Up and mix until just moistened. Now really the 7-Up, all it is it's your liquid part. And it's going to tell you to add the full amount. I already know, Ian, you're probably chugging a Mountain Dew as you're doing this, but resist the urge. It's to go in here, buddy. All right. And now what you're going to do is I'm going to go with the fork again and I'm going to mix it up. Okay, so you can see that I'm mixing it up. For this, honestly, I would use my fork. I wouldn't use my whisk at all because this gets kind of thick. Okay, and now it says you mix it just until it's moistened. For quick bread, it's really important not to over mix it. So I'm going just until I know I can see that I got a little bit of powder on the bottom there. I'm mixing it just until I have it brought together. Very important not to over mix it. And that's what the dough is going to look like, okay? Now I'm going to use this. I'm going to grab my bowl, or my pan, sorry. I'm going to use my spatula, start bringing this bread together, and I'm going to plop it into the dish. Okay, now I'm literally going to pat it out. It's going to be lumpy and bumpy on top. That's actually the texture we want for this sort of quick bread. Okay, by this time Adam is probably joined in with the Mountain Dew. All right. Now, the next thing says we're going to melt the butter. Now, I pulled out two different things here for your butter. Ian, if you remember, you melted butter in this in class, and what you found is you tried to pull it out of the microwave after it was melted, and it was really, really hot, and it was hard to pour it onto, hold on to it to pour it onto anything or add it to anything. So what I like to do is whenever I melt butter, I like to put it right into a liquid measuring cup. A couple reasons. One, you can only put glass in the microwave to melt it. Two, it's got a handle on it. So now I'm gonna put this in my microwave. I'm gonna set my microwave for 20 seconds. I'm gonna wash my hands. While that's being okay, now look, I still got some chunks in there and I do need it melted fully. So I am going to go for another 10 seconds. This is when you get to look at your adoring teacher and go, God, I miss that woman. She's so awesome. She's fantastic. All right, so it's all melted. And now what it says to do is you're going to top it with the melted butter. And literally you're going to pour the melted butter over the top of this. What's really nice about this is this gives it a nice crisp top. Okay, the butter's gonna kind of melt down in there too as it goes. And so now, top with melted butter, and then bake for 45 to 55 minutes. So I'm gonna put this in the oven. Now remember, when I put it in the oven, I want my oven rack in the center. Put it in there, set my timer, 45. Because we always start at the smallest amount of time. So again, it says 45 to 55 minutes. So I'll start at 45. At 45, I'm gonna use a toothpick like this. I'm gonna insert it into the center because that's how you tell when a quick bread is done. You insert a toothpick into the center. If nothing comes out, it is done. If it's still ooey gooey at all, I'm going to leave it in there for another 5-10 minutes, kind of depending on it. So quick bread, that's how you tell if it's done. Gonna be different for a yeast bread, which is what we're gonna make next week in class. All right? Happy baking. Now what you have to do when you get done with this is I need you to take a picture of yourselves making it, and I need a picture of your final product when it's all done. Got it? All right, guys. Have a good day. Happy